Week 6 is officially upon us, and in today's video, I'm going to help you guys set your week number 6 lineup. We're going to be breaking down all 15 matchups of the week from Thursday Night Football all the way through the doubleheader on Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether you should start or sit the running backs in every single game, as well as where I project for them to finish by the end of the week. I said that there are 15 games this week because there are 2 teams on bye, the Vikings as well as the Texans, so if you have those players in your lineup, make sure you get them out. Before we get into things though, make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button down below if you do end up enjoying today's video. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Football Giants. Now, Saquon Barkley has a knee injury and did not participate in practice on Monday. He has general soreness coming out of the game as well and is expected to play in this revenge game matchup, even though this isn't really a revenge game anymore since he got his revenge last season, but you get the point. His former team has been a wet dream matchup for running backs on a per game basis this season, allowing the 6th most points to the running back position. Even a banged up version of Saquon should put up solid numbers in this matchup. The Eagles attempted to turn into a very pass heavy offense last week and they fell flat on their face doing so, losing to the Broncos in a game where Saquon was a top 12 running back. He is a must-start running back every single week, and assuming he does play and the knee isn't too compromised, I got him inside the top 10 at the running back position this week. Now, Will Shipley is about as useful as the 3-pack of condoms you bought in high school, but you never actually got to use because not a single chick ever came anywhere remotely close to you. Would be shocking, genuinely, if he saw more than 2 touches, so Will Shipley is a must-sit. Cam Skattebo continues to look good as the lead back on the Giants, and at this point, it is pretty clear to me that even when Tyrone Tracy does return to the Giants, the keys to this backfield will be in the hands of Skattebo. Skattebo was the top 20 running back last week up against the Saints in New Orleans last week in a game where the Giants offense had a very big comeback down to earth game, 15 rushes for 59 yards and 6 receptions on 7 targets for 45 yards. Facing an Eagles defense that has been relatively soft this season up against the run, as they are a top 8 matchup for running backs on a per game basis, Skattebo feels good as a cozy mid-range running back to start on the week. Singletary is the RB2 without Tyrone Tracy, and that is about all I can say about him. He hasn't scored more than 4 points a single time this season. He should be on waivers because even if Skattebo was to get hurt and we didn't see Tyrone Tracy back, I don't even think I would want to start Devin Singletary in that scenario. Next up, we move to London, England, Wembley, England, technically, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Denver Broncos versus the New York Jumbo Jets. Who can't wait to wake up at 9:30 a.m. to watch the Jets? I am so excited to do that. Now, in honor of Braylon Allen being out on the IR, Breece Hall decided to channel his inner Braylon Allen last week and fumble the football. Outside of that, though, he did look pretty solid. 14 carries for 113 yards and 4 receptions on 5 targets for 42 yards up against the Cowboys as the running back number 12. So while the Jets offense is incredibly frustrating, and I don't really see that changing at all, with Hall getting basically all of the running back touches without Braylon Allen, Breece Hall feels like a solid low-end running back 1 here in a slightly below average matchup for running backs up against the Broncos. In a post-Braylon Allen Jets offense, Isaiah Davis slots in as the clear RB2. He played 40% of the snaps last week. I think he should roam around the 30 to 40% range of snaps most weeks. With all those snaps, though, he had just 1 carry for 5 yards and 3 receptions on 4 targets for 28 yards. Not going to be starting him as the Jets aren't very good at all, and I just can't envision him even stealing a touchdown at this point on this offense and them having a halfway decent enough game to where Isaiah Davis is actually startable. For the Denver Broncos, in life, there are 3 things that are inevitable: death, taxes, and Dobbins scoring a rushing touchdown as the Denver Broncos lead running back. Actually, there are 4 things that are inevitable, And the fourth thing is that the Jets suck dick. Outside of week 4, where the Broncos won big up against the Bengals, so Dobbins did get pulled before he could get that touchdown. Dobbins has scored in all other 4 games. He has been a top 16 running back in all of those games. Last week in Philly, he had 20 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown, as well as 1 reception on 1 target for 5 yards. I get Dobbins isn't the most sexy name in the NFL at the running back position, but when the dude continues to print reliable RB2 games, you have to keep starting him. This week up against the Jets defense that has been getting bent over a table by running backs weekly as a top 10 matchup on a per game basis for running backs, I got him as a mid-range running back too. Now, as projected going into last week, just because RJ Harvey scored late against the Bengals in a complete blowout of large proportions does not mean that RJ Harvey has now carved out a big role in this offense. And that was the case in Philly last week. He had just 4 rushes for 12 yards and 3 receptions on 3 targets for 18 yards, playing just 20% of the snaps. Until the team pushes him up with more snaps and touches, or until J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, Harvey will only see useful action if the game is an absolute blowout. Now, maybe this is the perfect game script for that to happen, but I still would not consider starting him. Next up, we move to the Los Angeles Rams at the Baltimore Ravens, the start of the 1 p.m. slate on Sunday. As I stated all summer, Kyren Williams lives inside of the end zone, just like my wife lives inside of Home Goods and Target. Last week against the 49ers, that was nothing but the truth on Thursday Night Football. 14 carries for 65 yards and 8 receptions on 10 targets for 66 yards and 2 scores. Now, I fully do not expect him to turn back into CMC again next week as he shape-shifted his powers from across the sideline, seeing 10 fucking targets. That is completely out of the ordinary for Kyren Williams, but Kyren will continue to put up reliable numbers with the upside to go bonkers due to how good the Rams offense is against the Ravens defense. That is a top 3 matchup for running backs on a per game basis. In a matchup where the Rams should be running the ball up late, Kyren is a locked and loaded top 10 option at the running back position this week. Even with Kyren Williams fumbling in back-to-back weeks and this being an issue dating back years at this point, Blake Corum continues to be a 0. All the Corum truthers will have that week 2 game where he scored a touchdown, though, so congrats to that. Clear must sit, just 1 touch last week for the Baltimore Ravens in one of the toughest matchups for a running back on a per-game basis in fantasy. Derrick Henry's back is up against the ropes, especially since Lamar Jackson is likely out. Derrick Henry may never be able to recover like that Drake song after shoving his schlong deep down the Bills' throat. They probably still taste it from all the way back in week 1, scoring near 30 PPR points. The man hasn't even eclipsed 11 PPR points since then. I'm not asking him to move a fucking mountain. I am not asking him to pick up the sun and throw it across the universe and pass that shit to Mars. I am just looking for 15 plus points. His touchdown last week bailed him out from a complete and utter disaster. Cooper Rush looks like he took a hammer to the skull before the game because he couldn't do jack shit up against the Texans. Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, so maybe he lucks into a halfway decent game, but at this point, he is a low-end RB2, and honestly, if you wanted to rank him lower than that, I would not judge you. If the Rams are going to pound town on the Ravens, then maybe you could see Justice Hill come into the game, catch a few dump-offs. The guy is fast, so maybe he could crib one of those and have a decent game, but ultimately I have no belief in even them doing that, even if they're getting taken to the cleaners, him getting a bunch of touches, because last week they got face-fucked by the Texans, and he had just 2 total touches. Next up, we move to a luxurious matchup here between the Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Dallas Cowboys look amazing. Javonte Williams is running hotter than Lightning McQueen's tires when they popped in the 2006 Piston Cup. All 4 games inside the top 20 in PPR and 3 of 5 games inside of the top 8. Javonte was at his best last Sunday as he pummeled the New York Jumbo Jets in MetLife, 16 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown, as well as 1 reception on 2 targets for 4 yards and a touchdown, facing a middle-of-the-road matchup up against the Panthers on a per-game basis. You just have to believe in Javonte at this point, especially with how great the Cowboys offense is looking. I guess when I said, oh, the Cowboys look so great, that's a little bit of hyperbole because the Cowboys' offense is great. The defense is a complete and utter fucking unmitigated disaster, but Javonte plays on the offense, so Javonte is going to continue to look mighty fine. I got Javonte as a clear top 12 back on the week as an RB1 inside of the top 8. Jaden Bonnie Blue is now the backup running back on the team due to Miles Sanders, who has been dealing with a knee/ankle injury and didn't practice at all last week. If he misses again, which is definitely plausible, regardless of who the RB2 is, though, they don't see enough work in this Cowboys offense for you to even come to any conclusion to actually start him. Blue had 4 carries for 7 yards last week, with Javonte being the clear lead back. I have no interest in the RB2 here, even if Miles Sanders was to return. For the Panthers, Chuba Hubbard is listed as day-to-day, according to head coach Dave Canales on Monday. If Chuba plays, then you obviously just flip the start to Chuba Hubbard, Hubba Bubba Max. Assuming Rico is in, this is a revenge game for him. Now, I was personally shocked when the team didn't bring him back, right? I was shocked because they bring in Javonte Williams, and Javonte Williams has looked as washed as it gets. But now looking back, they made the right decision because obviously Javonte beat the washed allegations. The guy is incredible. Last week against the Dolphins, he spread our defense out like how Moses parted the Red Sea. 23 rushes for 206 yards and a touchdown. The man averaged close to 10 yards per carry. 3 receptions on 4 targets for 28 yards as the RB number 1. Against the Dallas Cowboys defense that can't stop the run to save their lives, Rico is a must-start high-end RB2. If it is Chuba, I think Rico will start to get more looks going forward, but Chuba is still the guy. He would be more of a mid-range RB2, but you could also make the argument to rank him as a high-end RB2. If Chuba is out, Travis's brother will be the RB2 in this offense, and we ain't talking about Jason. Trevor Etienne barely saw any looks last week. He would be a clear sit. Next up, we move to the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Indianapolis Colts, but before we break down this game in depth at the running back position and the rest of the games on the Week 6 slate, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you are new, like you would have to be to get all those other offers. If you play $5 in the pick'em, you'll get $100 in either bonus funds or in bonus entries. How the pick'em works is incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks on the higher or the lower. For the players, if they hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, the payout will be higher, but all of the picks need to hit. So make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now with Amari DiMarcado pulling an Adonai Mitchell and fumbling the ball right before entering into the end zone just 1 week after Mitchell did it, let's just say the coaching staff was far from pleased. I genuinely have no idea how dropping the ball before you get into the end zone still happens when there is so much evidence of this happening. I have no idea how it happens again just 1 week later after everyone was clowning AD Mitchell last week. That clip should have been shown by every single head coach across the league during the meetings by the head coach. It is such a stupid fucking decision, and it just continues to happen. It might happen this week. It really wouldn't shock me at this point. DiMarcado looked good on his 3 carries for 81 yards, but he is likely now in the doghouse because of that fumble, that mistake, that really signed, sealed, and delivered that game straight to the Titans. Without Trey Benson, this is Michael Carter's backfield. 58% of the snaps last week against the Titans. DiMarcado played 28%, and Bam Knight played 16%. Carter ran 18 times for 51 yards and a touchdown, as well as 5 receptions on 5 targets for 22 yards as the RB number 8. Now, he faces one of the toughest matchups for running backs on a per-game basis against the Colts, who have held down Kyren Williams as well as Ashton Jeanty, and they have allowed just 3 total touchdowns to running backs on the season. Carter is a volume play in this matchup. He will get a decent amount of volume, he'll get a decent amount of touches, he will get a decent amount of dump-offs, so he could have a top 24 game, but I like him more as a high-end running back number 3. Starting DeMarcado after that fumble last week would be insane. Clear sit up against a great Colts run defense. Jonathan Taylor has ran hotter than Addison Ray during the COVID lockdown. 17 rushes for 66 yards, and not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns last week up against the poor Raiders defense. 3 receptions on 4 targets for 20 yards as the RB2. This man has already had 2 games this season with 3 touchdowns, and there are no signs of slowing down. The JT train has no brakes. You could tell me that this man was going up against the fucking Avengers on defense, and I would expect Jonathan Taylor to run over the Hulk in a top 12 matchup for running backs on a per game basis. JT is a clear top 3 back and should be ranked there regardless of the opponent at this point in the season. With JT playing so well, the Colts have really had no reason to even give the ball to DJ Giddens. He has 2 games on the season so far without a single touch, and while I do think he is a talented player with no snaps and no touches, he should either be on your bench or on the waivers. Next up, we move to the Seattle Seahawks at the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval, who are coming off of a big win up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, at this point in the season, the backfield of the Seattle Seahawks is very easy to understand. It's as easy as A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, right? Shout out to Mike Jack, okay? Kenneth Walker is going to do all the dirty work and get this team into scoring position, right? He's going to run for a solid total, and then right when you think he's finally going to get that touchdown, in comes, by God, that's Zach Charbonnet's music, and he'll score a touchdown. It will be like clockwork all season long. Walker is nothing but an RB3 at this point in the season because they want this to be a close to 50-50% snap split with Sharp seeing the goal line work. Playing both of these guys is going to make you feel like you have a fucking stomach ache all game. Neither guy is worthy of a top 24 ranking, but either guy could end up there due to their potential for multiple touchdowns out of a guy like Charbonnet, and Walker potentially busting out 120 plus rushing yards and 30 plus receiving yards. Ultimately, though, both of these guys feel absolutely disgusting, and I would not feel great about either guy, so they're both in that RB3 range. So again, Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, not feeling real nicey about either one of those guys. Last week was the worst showing out of ETN by far this year. On Monday Night Football up against the Chiefs, ETN saw his fewest amount of carries with 12 and his fewest amount of rushing yards with 49. He also had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 9 yards as the RB30. The Chiefs were up, though, 14-0 at half. So just not the best game script for any running back unless you're like Christian McCaffrey or something. All right. Prime Austin Eckler. Against the Seahawks, though, it seems much less likely that they'll be down by 2 touchdowns at half, a much more competitive game, and a slightly above average matchup for running backs up against Seattle. I would expect ETN to bounce back and go back to his high-end RB2 ways. Even with ETN on the struggle bus last week, Baishal Tootin saw just 5 total touches. All he is at this point in the season is a handcuff. He has yet to play more than 25+% of the snaps this season. No need to chance it and play him. Next up, we move to the LA Superchargers at the Miami Dolphins. Now, as a Dolphins fan, this is a season that has made me sick to my stomach, right? I get losing to the Bills. And hell, I even understand losing to the Patriots. And that loss to the Colts aged like some fine wine with how good they are. But how the fuck do you lose to the Panthers? James Draws hit us with the, what happened? How do you lose to the Panthers? And I agree, James. How do you lose to the fucking Panthers with a 17-0 lead at one point? The fucking Panthers! When you had the Bills on the ropes and came off a win up against the Jets, and somehow you let Bryce Young Cleveland steamer you. This team has mentally broke me. I have been a fan my whole entire life, and guess what? I will be a fan till they lower me into my grave, but watching this product is making me age at a rapid rate. I'm going to start finding fucking gray hair on my head because of how much this team just pisses me off. This week, I fully expect the Chargers to clap us. So at least I will save myself from the disappointment. I'm not even going to be disappointed. I'm not even thinking we're going to win. Nothing but pain and suffering as a Dolphins fan. A-Chain, though, regardless of how the Dolphins make me want to plug my toaster in and hop in the bathtub with it, A-Chain has been eating 4 or 5 games with a touchdown, and he has been a top 17 running back in all games with 16 plus points in every single matchup. He sees so many targets because Mike McDaniel loves nothing more than screens, even when Tua is slicing up defenses 10 plus yards down the field like he did last week up against the Panthers. And so if they're going to just keep dumping the ball off to A-Chain, he's going to just keep being a top 15 back. The Chargers defense has been a rougher spot for running backs this season, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is going to be the best day ever for Devon A-Chain, his best game yet, but with the safe receiving floor, he remains as a clear must-start top 10 back. While I think Ollie Gordon is a solid handcuff, that's all he is at this point in the season. The Dolphins' offense isn't anywhere close to good enough to have 2 standalone running backs for fantasy football, just 3 carries last week, and he has yet to even get over the 30+% clip of snaps. He's a clear sit. Now, realistically, I would prefer to leave both Hassan Haskins as well as Kamani Vidal on my bench this week, right? I understand the Dolphins' defense against the run is terrible, right? We just talked about how Dowdle went straight down our throat, pause, right? And one of these guys could end up being start-worthy. And if I had to take my guess, it would be Hassan Haskins. But the offensive line is banged up, and the offense as a whole was on the struggle bus last week. And this could be a straight-up 50-50 split without Hampton. Last week, unless the last 2 drives without Hampton, I don't know how to fucking read sometimes when I write down these stats. Read to you guys, sometimes, my brain just fucking shuts off. It's probably just because the Dolphins make me so mad that I just forget how to read, okay? So, Vidal had 60% of the snaps, 50% of the attempts, and 45% of the routes. Haskins had 40% of the snaps, 50% of the attempts, and 39% of the routes. This usage makes sense in a game where they are down. But if they're up against the Dolphins, which I do expect, because again, the Dolphins suck ass, I would expect to see more Haskins. So, with me thinking that will be the case, I would prefer to start Haskins. But ultimately, if you can afford to just sit back and watch this play out, I think that's probably the best case scenario. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Quinshon Judkins has been incredible this season, especially when you consider the situation he's in. For one, he had 3 games of geriatric Joe Flacco, whose play was as limp dick as it gets. And for 2, he wasn't even with the team during training camp and missed the first game of the season. And he has taken over this backfield already with 50+% of the snaps in 3 straight weeks. Outside of the first game up against the Ravens, where he played just 27% of the snaps as the RB29, he has been a top 20 back in the last 3 games and has scored a touchdown in 2 of 4 games. Last week, he ran for 110 yards on 23 rushes up against the Vikings in London with 1 reception on 2 targets for 18 yards. In a below average matchup for running backs this week up against the Steelers, I will temper my expectations for Judkins. But he has just looked so good, and the offense is in better hands with Dylan Gabriel, so I got him as a high-end RB2. While Jerome Ford F-150 is the clear RB2 on this Browns offense, his touch count is so unreliable week in and week out that even if the Browns magically become a fucking boom, firepower powerhouse under Dylan Gabriel, you would not be able to start him. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jaylen Warren was back at practice on Monday, doing individual drills, which is a good indicator that he could return. Obviously, we need to monitor the situation, as there are still questions if he plays or not. Just doing individual drills doesn't necessarily mean you are going to be back, but assuming he is good to go, you would want him in your lineup in most scenarios, as he's been a consistent top 20 back all of the season. And I strongly believe that even though Gainwell played very well up against the Vikings, and honestly, very well might be even putting things not as kindly as they should be. He played fucking great up against the Vikings in Ireland in Warren's absence, but Warren is still the guy in this backfield. This is a super tough matchup for running backs on a per-game basis, a bottom 5 one, which is why I said you would want to start him in most scenarios. Some of you guys may have enough players even with the bye weeks, that you don't have to start him, but most of you guys will start a top 24 running back when you can get it. He is a low-end RB2 for me on the week strictly due to the matchup. Again, I have no concern about Gainwell eating too much of the pie. Gainwell may have earned more of the piece of the pie, right? He may have earned more touches in this offense because, again, he looked great against the Vikings. 19 rushes for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I still believe this is Warren's backfield if he plays, so Gainwell belongs on the bench as a high upside handcuff because Caleb Johnson is on a fucking milk carton. He is nowhere to be found. Next up, we got the New England Patriots at the New Orleans Saints, the final game in the 1 p.m. slate. So if you guys have enjoyed this far, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Now, even with the Saints looking good offensively last week against the Giants, Alvin Kamara continues to be nothing short of dust over the last 3 weeks. Running back 27 last week with 8 rushes for 27 yards and 4 receptions on 6 targets for 28 yards. The Patriots matchup has been brutal for running backs. So with Kamara looking like a 2-pack of ass in your lineup over the past few weeks, he has fallen into the RB3 range. I know deep down that he has that big game inside of him, but I just don't see that big game coming out here up against the Patriots defense. Kendre Miller continues to cut in more and more into this backfield and has had 10-plus carries in back-to-back games. The problem is he doesn't do enough to even have standalone value. All he's doing really is just cannibalizing the value of Kamara right now. So with Kamara healthy and having not been traded yet, maybe he does get traded, Kendre Miller belongs on the bench. Again, this is a very tough matchup. Antonio Gibson is done for the season with a torn ACL for the Patriots, so maybe that will finally elevate Travion Henderson in this offense. Ramondre fumbled again, and he has now fumbled in 3 straight games, but the team just keeps giving him the rock. It is almost like he has some sort of blackmail on Josh McDaniels or something. 7 attempts for 14 yards last week and 2 touchdowns in Buffalo, as well as 2 receptions on 2 targets for 13 yards. He had a good game against Miami back in week number 2 and did his disappearing act after that like he always does. That's what Ramondre does. He shows up, he has the big game, has people talking about him. Oh, maybe Ramondre Stevenson's back, right? And then he fades into irrelevance again. He says bye-bye and disappears. That is what will happen again. Think about how, Chubbs in Family Guy, in Happy Gilmore, watching from the clouds, waving goodbye, and then he disappears. That's what Ramondre Stevenson does every single fucking week. Now, I got Henderson. I get it. I drafted him. I loved him. He made me happy. Shout out to Simple Jack. I really was kind of off on him early on in the summer. I was like, you know what, dude? Ramondre Stevenson's going to get too many touches. Don't fall for the fucking trap. It's a trap. Shout out to Admiral Akbar. And then, he looked so good in camp, and he was getting so much fluff pieces. So many beat reporters were massaging this dude's taint like his name was Deshaun Watson. And then he comes out the gate of the season and just really hasn't done anything. I understand that he's struggling in pass protection, and I get you're slow rolling him to start off his career. But with Gibson now out, for the love of everything holy, please give this man the ball. If Henderson saw a decent amount of touches, he could be in the RB2 range every single week. But as things are sitting right now, he belongs on your bench. Just 6 carries for 24 yards last week in that W up against the Bills, as well as 2 receptions for 3 yards. Next up, we move to the 4 p.m. slate of games with the Tennessee Titans at the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders are actually so bad that I might have to stop screaming their name, but it's so fun, I just got to keep doing it. Now, Tajay Spears returned last week for the Titans to 25% of the snaps. I do believe that will increase as the season goes forward, but this is still Pollard's backfield until Spears takes it from him. Last week in Arizona, in probably the funniest win of all time, Pollard was the RB17 with 14 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown, as well as 3 receptions on 3 targets for 11 yards. This is a great matchup for running backs as the Raiders allow the 10th most points on a per-game basis to running backs, so maybe we'll see another RB2 showing out of Pollard, but ultimately this offense is just way too weak to justify actually ranking him that high. He is just a fringe break glass in case of emergency RB3 type of play. Tajay Spears returned to 4 carries for 14 yards. Like I said with Pollard, he should get more of a crack at things going forward, but as of right now, he is unstartable. For the Raiders, even with the Raiders offense being a dumpster fire due to the fact that Geno Smith is playing like he's got 2 left feet and half of a fucking brain cell, Ashton Jeanty is still eating. Last week in Indy, 14 carries for 67 yards and 5 receptions on 7 targets for 42 yards. As the RB15, the Titans defense is softer than Sharman against the run, allowing the third most points on a per game basis, getting gashed by Michael Carter and Amadi DiMarcado last week prior to that fumble. So even though Geno Smith is destroying this team from the inside, Genty is still a must-start top 12 running back. Raheem Mostert played 47% of the snaps last week, which is by far the most any running back has gotten behind Genty this season. Even so, Genty still got his, and Mostert had 7 carries for 22 yards. Could this be frustrating for Genty owners if this is the case going forward? I definitely think it could, but 7 carries in the Raiders offense is nowhere close, even in a wet dream matchup, for you to actually want to start him. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Christian McCaffrey will be my running back 1 in my rankings every single week. While he has not yet approached that apex, achieved the apex this season as the RB1, he has been a top 8 running back every single week and is yet to score fewer than 22 PPR points. It does not matter at all who is healthy. CMC is just that guy. Brock Purdy's out. Don't fucking matter. Mac Jones going to have him feast. The whole wide receiver core is out. Maybe they're going to key on Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't matter. 27.9 PPR points last week as a top 6 running back up against the Rams. With 8 receptions on 9 targets for 82 yards and a touchdown, as well as 22 carries for 57 yards. This dude is averaging 10.4 targets per game, which ranks 3rd amongst all players. I don't need to glaze this dude even further, but with all the shit talk that I was getting this summer, Nick, you can't possibly draft Christian McCaffrey. Nick, stop telling me to draft Christian McCaffrey. He's not going to be good anymore. Didn't you see they picked up they traded for Brian Robinson? And everyone was just bitching and moaning in the comment section. Look, I get things wrong all the time. I get them wrong all the time, right? Everyone's going to be wrong about players. But Christian McCaffrey was the easiest first-round pick ever. Either he gets hurt, knock on wood, and is a bust, or he's healthy and he's a league winner. It really was that simple, and yet people didn't want to draft him. My running back 1 this week in a mid-range matchup for running backs up against the Bucs. B-Rob being traded to this team looking back is extremely strange due to how they are using him, but I guess they're just kind of looking at him as just like an insurance policy. Shout out to Flo from Progressive. B-Rob is unstartable with McCaffrey healthy, knock on wood, and is live to score less than a point in any given game. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Bucky Irving, Rachaad White grabbed the reins as the RB1 in Tampa. 14 carries for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 4 receptions on 4 targets for 30 yards in Seattle. I told y'all last week that without Bucky, Rachaad White was going to go bananas. Shout out to the Minions. Banana. And that is exactly what happened with a top 8 finish. Rachaad is the clear RB1 on this team until Bucky returns, playing 80% of the snaps last week in a mid-range matchup for running backs on a per-game basis. Against the 49ers, Rachaad with 2 A's White is live to potentially teabag the defense here like it's a Halo 3 game. So I got him as a mid-range running back number 2 with clear top 12 upside. Sean Tucker the fucker, we did see some flashes of him last year, but it was all Rachaad White on Sunday. Just 21% of the snaps for Tucker, 3 carries, 3 receptions, no interest in him unless something was to change. Next up, we move to game number 12, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Green Bay Packers. Josh Jacobs is probably looking at this matchup just salivating thinking about it. The type of matchup that will have you looking like a fat kid staring at his first triple dipper from Chili's. It is just a mouth-watering matchup. The Bengals allow the most points to running backs on a per-game basis, and that run defense couldn't even stop me. So with a running back at the caliber of Josh Jacobs, this dude is going to eat. Coming out of the bye week, where the week prior, he gave the Dallas Cowboys the fucking 5-knuckle shuffle, slung out some back shots, and that one is the RB2 in that overtime, primetime thriller. 22 rushes for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns with 4 receptions on 4 targets for 71 yards. Jacobs hasn't been at his best this season, but hopefully he starts to get on a roll, just like he did last season. Start off a little bit slow, then picks things up as the season goes along. Clear top 8 must-start running back in this matchup with the RB1 upside. Emmanuel Wilson saw a season-high 11 touches in that banger matchup prior to the bye against the Cowboys. I don't think they will need to use him as much, as they're probably just going to put the Bengals on a t-shirt, so I would not be starting him. Chase Brown continues to be touted by expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros as a low-end start, but to me, I just can't do it. Last week against the Lions, he had 7 receptions on 8 targets for 21 yards and 8 rushes for 27 yards. So if they keep just throwing the ball 8+ times, maybe then I'll say F it, and start him. But with the offense looking like a disaster and Jake Browning continuing to be a laughing stock, there is no way you can make an argument, in my opinion, for you to actually start him, especially against one of the toughest matchups for running backs on a per-game basis. Do not start Mr. Chase Brown. If I can't start the Bengals RB1, you're not starting fucking Samaje Perine. Leave him on the waivers. All right, quick, we are editing this one in. We have just seen that Joe Flacco has been traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think Joe Flacco would play this week, even with Jake Browning being so bad. Maybe this will be the revival. Shout out to Zach Bryan of the Bengals players, right? Maybe Joe Flacco can get these guys cooking, even though I think Joe Flacco behind that offensive line is kind of a death sentence. Maybe that's just some hopium coming from me here. Still would be sitting Chase Brown, though, even if Joe Flacco does make his start here. Next up, we got oh, that's Monday Night Football. We almost sung the Monday Night Football song because I read the Chiefs. They're on Monday Night Football yesterday up against Duval. We got the Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs on Cause you waited all day for Sunday night. Jahmyr Gibbs continues to be an incredibly valuable asset week in and week out in fantasy. The Lions offense continues to be an absolute wagon, and Gibbs continues to put the work in. He has been a top 15 running back in all 5 games to start off the season and is yet to fall below 15 PPR points. I did expect better last week up against a grotesque Bengals defense. 12 carries for 54 yards and 2 receptions on 2 targets for 33 yards and a score as the RB13. Gibbs has yet to reach his peak and have that true blowout 30-plus point performance. You won your week because of Gibbs, right? You have to do that, but you know that's coming. You know that big game is coming. The Chiefs are a middle-of-the-road matchup for running back, so Gibbs is clearly a top 5 running back. While Gibbs had a solid day, Montgomery turned into Patrick Mahomes and threw a touchdown, and he ran one in his hometown of Cincinnati as the running back number 10. Monty will have those big games due to how much of a wagon the Lions offense is, but more than likely most weeks he kind of just sits in that low-end RB2 to high-end RB3 range. Against the Chiefs, I feel that will be a comeback down to earth spot as a high-end running back 3. Now, Kareem Hunt went berserk like that Eminem song last week in Duval on Monday Night Football as the RB8. 7 rushes for 49 yards and 2 tugs, as well as 1 reception on 1 target for 8 yards on his lowest snap share yet of the season with just 33%. This backfield is just going to constantly frustrate you, and it is close to impossible to ever actually project who you're going to start. And normally, even if you are able to figure it out, you have an epiphany. It costs you 50 at Tiffany. Shout out to Tiffany, Stephanie. And you figure it out. You're like, I got it. I solved the puzzle. This week, it's Pacheco, right? You probably don't even end up with a startable game. I know last week, Kareem Hunt scored 2 touchdowns last week. Sure, if you figured it out last week, you cracked the code. You got the bank safe open. But if you figure it out this week, you play Hunt, I think he probably gets like 9 fantasy points on a better day, right? I still really do believe, though, that if they fed Pacheco, he would be a reliable RB2 weekly, but we just don't live in that timeline. We have to call up Doctor Strange to get us into a different fucking multiverse so that can happen. So both guys are sits in a brutal matchup for running backs up against the Lions. Next up, we move to the first game of Monday Night Football, because why have one Monday Night Football game when you can have both? Shout out to that little girl in that El Paso commercial. If you were a little kid watching like Nickelodeon, the Disney Channel, or Cartoon Network, and you were young, like 12 to 14 years ago, that is when that ad was playing. I sent it in the Discord last night. If you guys are not in the Discord, check that out. Link in the video description. We talk all the time in the Discord during the games. I'm always in there during Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. During the Sunday slate, I try to really lock in. I'm not in there as much, but during the night games, I'm always in there. We have a big community in there, which is very awesome. Captain Spock created the Discord. Shout out to Spock. I really appreciate him, and he knows that. I don't have to just say that on video. He already knows that. He's a very nice guy, so shout out to Spock. The Buffalo Bills at the Atlanta Falcons. Is Josh Allen a James Cook merchant? James Cook doesn't get things going for the first time in the season, and Josh Allen crumbles like your Oreo cookie after you dump it into a metric fuck ton of milk. The Bills take their first L of the season, and as the number 1 Buffalo Bills hater on earth, I was smiling like the Joker. And yes, Bills fans, I get it. Nick, the Dolphins are trash, you idiot. I know they are. I will say that. I talk about it every week. The Dolphins suck, okay? Cook had 15 carries for 49 yards and 1 target, failing to score PPR points. Now he faces the worst matchup for running backs against the Falcons this week, though it is important to kind of, take these metrics with a grain of salt, look into the matchups. And Atlanta has faced Bucky Irving, who was the RB15 against them in week 1. Then they faced the Vikings when it was Mason and Aaron Jones together, so they struggled. Then they went up against Chuba. They locked him up. And then they faced the Commanders when they were still operating under the triple-headed backfield of death. So they haven't faced a single running back on the same caliber of James Cook, besides, I guess, Bucky Irving, right? Recently, they haven't faced one of the same caliber of James Cook. So you have to keep rocking with this man, even after just one slip up. As a clear top 12 back, I got him inside my top 12, considering he's been a top 12 running back every single game. Outside of last week, he is still a must start. You do not want to panic. Ray Davis was as uninvolved as it gets last week, though. That didn't even boost any of the other running backs here, unless the game is a blowout and Ray Davis sees garbage time touchdown, or unless they're getting dog walked and Ty Johnson catches a touchdown. None of these backups in Buffalo are even remotely worth rolling the dice for. Besides Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson is the running back I trust the most in fantasy football. 4 straight games inside the top 13 coming out of the bye week, and 3 of 4 games inside the top 7. And while he has been dominating 50 Shades of Grey style, this man has just 1 rushing touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown. Imagine how fantastic the numbers will be when he starts scoring reliably. Even with the Falcons offense not being great this year, Bijan has been a gem in an above average matchup for running backs up against the Buffalo Bills. I love Bijan as a top 3 running back on the week. Tyler Algier will continue to frustrate Bijan owners, but the touches are too far up and down to quantify actually starting him. There is no reliability. He has scored in 2 of 4 games, and in those 2 games, he scored over 10 fantasy points. But without the touchdowns, he's failed to score more than 3 fantasy points. I like Algier and view him as one of the premier handcuffs in fantasy, but unless you're in a real tough situation, I can't make a good argument to start him. Final game here, the second game on Monday Night Football, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Bills game starts at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so set your clocks. Make sure you remember to watch, because it is tough to remember, like, oh, Monday Night Football, that starts at 8:15. No. Starts at 7:15, so make sure you guys are watching that one, especially if you got players in the game, or if you just like watching football like I do. You're just a football guy or gal. There is a lot of football gals. Shout out to all of the women that watch these videos. I always thought that that was so crazy that so many people watch, and not even just guys versus girls. There are people that watch from Australia. There are people that watch from Canada. There are people that watch from all around the world, and that is truly just so impressive to me that I really didn't know, which I guess I should have known before making these videos, that so many people outside the U.S. really love football. So shout out to all you guys. I really appreciate you. Shout out to everyone that watches my videos. I love you guys so much. Genuinely. Thank you. It means the world to me, and I try not to get all mushy in these videos, but it truly is crazy just how far these videos have came since the beginning, right? Where I wasn't even on the screen. Basically the only thing that's changed is I've just gotten fucking fatter since the beginning of making these videos, and I've aged a little bit. I think I still actually kind of look the same, just like a fat booth version of the young version of Nick that started making these videos. So maybe coming out of the bye week for the Bears, we got the Bears at the Commanders, they will realize that DeAndre Swift isn't very good, and they'll actually give Kyle Managai more touches. But I highly doubt that. Even though Swift is averaging just 3.3 yards per carry on the season, the team continues to rock with him as the RB1. In the last game prior to the bye in Viva Las Vegas, he had 14 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown in that spot, as well as 4 receptions on 6 targets for 22 yards. Swift continues to be good enough for you to play him, but never good enough for you to have won because you played him, right? It's really just a tough scene because it's hard to sit him if you don't have any other running backs, but he's never really going to rise up to the occasion and have that big game. So while I can't actually mark him as a sit, he is boring. He is just really as boring as it gets. And with a below average matchup against running backs on a per game basis here against the Commanders, he's just a high end RB3. Kyle Monagai averages more yards per carry than Swift by 0.3. Even so, they don't play him enough or give him remotely enough looks to even consider playing him. Leave him on your bench as a stash in case the Bears have that epiphany. They come to that realization that, hey, maybe we should give him the ball more. For the Commanders, for the shoe, beat the Packers. Fuck, we didn't sing the Colts song. This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue. So that's like a gem for anyone that waited. They didn't hear me sing the song. They probably skipped to it because people say they like to listen to me sing. I don't think I have a good voice for singing at all. I don't think I have a good voice really in general, but you guys seem to like me, so I do appreciate you. But JCM, Jacory, Krosky, Merritt, Little Bill, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Bill, JCM, Jacory, Krosky, Merritt. The man with roughly a million nicknames has been finally uncorked in Washington. The team finally, after 4 fucking games, figured out that JCM is the best back on the team. 14 carries against the Chargers for 111 yards, and not 1, but 2 touchdowns, as well as 2 receptions on 2 targets for 39 yards. He was the clear RB1 in terms of snaps, playing 47%. C-Rod as well as McNichols played 25%. Hopefully, this push continues. And this wasn't a fugazi, wazzy-woozy one game, and then he goes back to being in the gutter for fantasy. So hopefully this is a trend to continue in a top 8 matchup for running backs. I am feeling real nicey about him as a high-end RB2. Rodriguez saw 5 touches behind Bill. McNichols saw just 2. Aren't even worth specular? What the fuck does that even mean? Speculative? I wrote, they aren't even worth speculative starts, and I just can't read again, you know. The Dolphins are frying my brain. At least my boy Alex Poetan Pereira knocked out Big Ank. Fuck you, Big Ank. Shout out to Poetan. Gamma, baby. So, not even worth speculative starts at this point because it doesn't seem like that 3-headed backfield approach anymore. So, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you didn't enjoy today's video, make sure you guys uppercut that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Hit it with the left, hit it with the right, hit it with the left again. Shout out to Yuri Prohavska. I would love if you guys would hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you guys check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. I love you a long time. Have a great one. As always. Good boy!